Hi, this is Ken Broadway from the University of Florida, and I often get questions about form mallet technique, great ways to develop better technique or skills to apply to music. So I want to take a few minutes today to show you some of the exercises I use to work on my form mallet technique. And we're talking today about the Stevens technique, sometimes called the Stevens grip. I'm not going to discuss this in great detail. I highly recommend you get the Method of Movement for Marimba by Lee Stevens. Has excellent pictures and descriptions of this grip. But a common problem we have with young students is they choke up too much on the outside mallet. This causes a lot of problems with trying to get an even sound between these two sticks. So just a real quick view of the grip there. And another issue we'll talk about in a few moments is when we go to large intervals, students will often lock this inside mallet to the center of their palm, so letting this mallet move freely in the hand. So I encourage you to get the Method of Movement for Marimba to see this very carefully drawn out, because you don't want to do this incorrectly over and over and reinforce incorrect technique. So the first thing, just for some terminology, often start out working on something called double verticals, sometimes called quad stops. I'm just setting up C's and G's for now. I'm trying to use a very relaxed piston stroke, not going down into the instrument, almost like dribbling a basketball. Now there's always a little bit of a, I wouldn't say a debate, but there's differing opinions about where we should strike the bars. If I strike right in the center, and I don't know if this will come across as you're listening to this, I get a slightly different sound. And if I strike off center. So it stands to reason, if I'm going to strike in the center here, if I move chromatically, I should strike in the center here. If I'm going to strike towards the edge here, I should strike the same distance from the string here. So for now, I'm going to take a consistent approach and strike fairly close to the string. Now I'm going to strike in the center of the bar. And I think consistency of approach is the most important thing. If I have to play one interval towards the end of the bar, or one position towards the end of the bar, say an E major chord, when I play my F major chord, I'm going to be the same distance from the string. That way I get a consistent sound. If I strike here, it can really change the sound. So as I'm working on my technique, I'm not just working on striking the bars with great technique, but I'm also working on where to strike the bar. So again, these double verticals, and coming up off the bar. We also have lateral motion. Again, we sometimes call them permutations. Once again, we would try to get this great piston stroke where every stroke has purpose. A common problem for young students when they're beginning form mallet technique is they try to almost use a whip action when they're playing slowly. So instead of getting equal strokes, they end up getting a very uneven sound where they're really being a little bit too relaxed. So we want to make sure we're using good strokes for every single time we're striking the bar. So those are laterals. Then we also have independent strokes. The independent stroke is where each individual mallet has purpose. And we try to keep all the other mallets very still. So a common exercise. These are just things you do every day as a marimbist, really working towards great technique. Finally, we start putting these together into exercises. So many times we will move up either chromatically or diatonically up the scale. Fifths are a great place to start, good comfortable interval. But as we get more and more comfortable with the instrument, we need to start using different intervals. So we might use major triads. laterals. So now numbering my mallets 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm striking mallet 1 and 3 at the same time, mallet 2 and 4 at the same time. You see, I start getting more into shifting on the instrument now. I'm not just staying in a plane of white notes or chromaticism. I'm having to turn my body. I try to keep my posture intact all the way through, and I try to do this without using any motion that's inefficient. Another great exercise to work on for young marimbas is the triple lateral. So we did single laterals a moment ago. When I do triple laterals, I like to start on mallet 2. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. This is a great exercise for working towards one-handed rolls that we'll be using in our advanced repertoire. And finally, we often think about this four mallet technique as not being scalar. I would highly recommend you work on your scales holding 4 mallets. For example, you certainly can play all your scales with your inside mallets, or you can certainly play your scales with each individual mallet. And finally, this is a great exercise from the Stevens Method of Movement book. We can use small intervals. Again, this is one of our challenges for our marimbas, small intervals to do our scales. So the sticking patterns are written in the back of that book, but a common one is 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when we do the scale now, we're working on really small intervals. This particular technique of getting these small turns is very, very important in a lot of our advanced repertoire. And you can see when I do this, get a good wrist turn on each one of these, as you can see in the camera. I can do many of these away from the instrument. I can do them on a floor as long as I don't tear up my mallets or drive the people downstairs crazy by pounding on the floor. But these techniques, just getting the mallets comfortable in your hands, very, very important. And finally, interval changing. We haven't really talked about that in the middle of exercises. We want to make sure we can go from very small intervals, again seconds, to very large intervals very smoothly. This was that exercise I mentioned earlier in our conversation where we have to learn to get this mallet to move in our hand. It doesn't stay locked into our palm. We don't want to drop the thumb and just move this mallet back and forth. We want to make sure that that mallet does move in my hand as I'm playing that. So as I play this exercise, I might do something with small intervals, and then go into octaves. Hopefully better than that. Using good technique each time I'm doing that particular exercise. So this kind of gives you an idea of many of the things we do on marimba. Once again, we work on our laterals, straight up and down. So our verticals, straight up and down. Our laterals, moving side to side. Our independent strokes, where each individual mallet will move. And certainly our interval changes. We play our scales, both playing with our inside mallets and maybe just doing our outside mallets by themselves. Play small intervals, we play large intervals. We need to make sure we can play octaves and seconds. Now this is a very brief snapshot into how we approach four mallet technique, but we need to make sure this technique is sound before we even attempt to play repertoire. What you don't want to do is learn how to play a piece of challenging music and play it with incorrect technique, with dropping the thumbs for large octaves, for large intervals, or using too much arm or poor technique to try to get to the notes. And finally, beating spots are so important. We do not want to hit the node, that point where the string crosses through the bar. And finding that point where we're very consistent in our approach. Again, if I play in the center, and then I play towards the edge, I'm going to get an inconsistent sound. I need to play same distance from the string, same distance from the string. Or when I can play in the center, certainly I will play in the center to get that sound. Consistency is the key. So I hope this has been helpful to you. If you have any questions about this, please contact me at kbroadway@arts.ufl.edu. Thank you for watching.